thank you all for checking out this week's episode. Once again, I'm John. If you like what you heard and saw today, subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and check out our brand new merch store with hats, coffee mugs, t-shirts, other cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Again, thank you all for support. Be safe, and see you next week. How's it going? John here, the host of Spirit Talk. And once again, get to bring a cool collaboration here for the second time on the program, Crystal Brolik Stokes. And for the fifth time, Marcus Torgerson. Awesome to have you guys here. I know we'll kind of get to, we've been out here enough. We all know each other. The Spirit Talk community knows who both of you are. And it's you are both some of the guests where everyone's always like, I always get messages, so I get like the YouTube studio where everyone leaves a comment on a video, and every day there's 2 or 3 comments on the other episodes between both of you, where people are like, oh, this is so cool, I need to hear this time, or I had no idea who these people were, but now I can't get enough of them. And so, a testament to you guys. Thank you for the support. Jump on here again, and thank you for the friendship.
Yeah, well, thank you for the invite, and thank you for allowing us to or actually I should say thank you for allowing God to work through us and speak through us and allow us the strength to share what we share, so it may reach other people.
It's I think God told Marcus to tell me about you, because I would never have known about you, which maybe we could start there. It's like who you meet in life and who you kind of like go through. It's just such the way how you introduce yourself to people and meet people along the way in this journey we're on. It's like, I don't know. There's no way I would have known about you unless I was going down severe rabbit holes and seeing everything that Marcus was like following or talking about or talking to. And it's like, for him to be like, you're going to have her on the podcast. She's awesome, blah, blah, blah. She's great. And then to have that talk with you and be blown away. It's like, I can't thank Marcus enough about that. So it's like, it's such a unique thing we have.
Have we shared how we met?
I don't know how you guys actually met yet, but when Marcus told me to have you on the podcast, he basically said, it wasn't like, hey, you should. It was like, hey, you need to, and you will have. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So the way Marcus and I actually met is quite funny. I was on Instagram and I saw him on a live with Gray Man Project, right? Saw him online.
Yeah.
And I know him as well. And so we've done some things when he was doing outdoor stuff and everything. So I had known him. So I was listening to them talk, and they were very similar likes and interests and stuff. And he mentioned that he was moving out here to Texas, but then he also mentioned the Terminal List. And I'm a big Terminal List fan, and Jack Carr is amazing, and with history and stuff there. So I reached out to him, and I had just recently moved out this way. And so I reached out to him knowing that he was moving, and said, hey, if you need an extra hand in moving, because I just did it and I know how it is. And I was like, if you need an extra hand, let me know. You know, this and that. And then I saw somewhere else, somebody was having a watch party for Terminal List. And I was like, maybe we could have like a watch party. And I was thinking like other people or whatever. And Marcus responds to me and says, like, what's your deal? What exactly was it that you said?
It was a fear-based response.
It was.
Because I wasn't sure what was the motivation behind the kindness.
That's what it was. He was like, what are you after? Like, what's the deal here? Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
And I literally just told him, I'm just offering a helping hand, like kindness, like God told me to reach out. And I was trying to do more, listening and doing things and getting out of my comfort zone. And honestly, I just knew how it was being by myself, moving and stuff. And so I just really wanted to be kind and offer a helping hand. If he needed a helping hand, let me know, since he would be in the vicinity. And so once I had told him that, and he kind of, calmed down a bit, and his hair didn't stand up on edge anymore of warnings. we just ended up it just kind of phone calls, and then he was new to Christ, and we would just have conversations, fellowship, and it was, I think, some pretty intense fellowship every time we spoke, because I'm big on words. Words have meaning, and Marcus would say certain things. I'd be like, well, let's try saying it this way, or let's think of it this way, and and a lot of the stuff that I was going over in my Bible study and stuff was directed towards a lot of what he was experiencing, or reminders that he needed to grow and everything. And so that's actually how we met. Was I offered a helping hand, and he was like, what do you want?
Well, Marcus, do you think we're like, how do we get to a point of society where, like you, if someone messages me and they know I'm on the road, my first thought is, if I don't really know this person, oh, they want free tickets. They want a free something. They want after show. They want to hang out. And like, oftentimes that's not the case. They're just like, hey, be safe. And so it's like, how do we get through that kind of hurdle of, maybe it is fear. Maybe it's just like fear of being used, maybe. Like, I find it hard to believe that there's not more genuine people out there in society than people that just want to take advantage.
Well, so Brolik is a prime example of someone whose intent is just kindness.
Right.
And one thing I've learned, and every time she brings it up, I kind of just shake my head, because of the fact that I allowed, now, obviously this knowledge that I have now is new. Okay. It's new. It's not, I didn't have this back then, but when somebody reaches out and wants something, just because 10 other people reached out and said the exact same words, well, with the exception of moving and terminal list watch parties, but just because 10 people had nefarious intents, give every person an opportunity to show who they truly are. And within 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to notice it. Now, I'm thankful that the Lord brought Crystal around and sat there and was like, look, Marcus, she's bullheaded. She's not going to, she's going to nail everything as it comes, as she's honest as the day is long, which is what I need as a friend, right? Like, I need friends who are going to call me out on stuff, even if it hurts my feelings. And she's very good. And she doesn't hurt my feelings, but she's good at being transparent and honest about things, right? Because she's thinking of my best interest. Just like if you and I were talking and you said something, I thought you were saying something that could be harmful to you in some way, shape, or form, to sit there and be like, yeah, that's cool. That's a good idea. What kind of friend am I? I need to sit there and be like, John, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
And if you heard about it, well, tough shit, because I'm still your friend. And in a week, when you're finished being mad at me, I'll be still here. And my friendship with Brolik is very much that way. She does say things that sometimes I'm like,
he twitches. You can literally see it when I'll say something, and you can see that he just, like, that old Marcus, that old man comes out, and he's like, he goes, you see it in his face. It's very subtle, but when you read body language, he's just like, and he'll tell me at times too. I'll say something, and he's like, man, he's like,
Yeah. Yeah. And, and I think it's important what she brought up earlier about words and how important words are. I think that I hope that's a message that really gets conveyed to everybody listening, because what we speak, even when we say it is, I don't mean that, I mean this. Well, what you say is first of all going into other people's ears, and what you're saying is going back into your own ears.
Right.
I think we need to be, I know there's a word, and she's going to get me on this word. We need to be not mindful, but
intentional.
See what I tell you. We need to be intentional with what we say, and speak. I don't want to say truth, but our truth, but intentional with our words.
Yep. Yeah. We since it's the 5th time with Marcus, like Crystal, every time he's on here, there's really no agenda. After the first episode, we just kind of threw it out the window. We've done everything from faith to how to stop human trafficking to Krav Maga to how to be a genuine good human. And I was kind of preparing for this. I was like, I just wrote down the phrase like junk drawer. And the reason why I did is because like it had just anything goes. Like there's no limitations per se. But I also, the physical idea of a junk drawer where it's got a name where it just seems like just throwaway shit, but it's all shit you need in your life.
At some point.
So duct tape, a piece of glue, wax you never needed, a screw that doesn't fit anything else, but then you did. So it's like when you look at friendships with people I want to be with, people like you, I consider you guys junk drawers. There's everything's there. You might not need it one day, but you need this part of this person next day. It's like it's kind of a cool concept. It's like you look at a junk drawer, it's like there's no organization, there's shit everywhere. Yet when you need something really bad, that is going to be your lifesaver. That's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah. I'm waiting for her to bring up the word junk.
No.
No? Okay.
Well, because I mean, it makes sense, junk drawer, and you know, God, I would say is more of a tool drawer, you know, and God's got a bunch of tools in there for you, and you might not need it at that moment, and you could be going through something else, and he says none of those tools in there are going to work right now. I'm the only one that's going to work. Right. And as you seek him first, or as you start talking to him, because you realize none of your other tools are going to work, you're going to get to a point and he's going to say, okay, now go get that tool out of that drawer.
Right.
Now go grab that tool, and I'm going to work through that tool to show you and to give you what you need and to provide for you, because that's what he does, is he provides. And I think a lot of people see. Yes, you may. You want to say hi real quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Gosh, you're getting so big.
I know, right?
Is that a bear costume? What is that?
Vampire.
Oh,
It's
what
so
is it?
little.
Are you dressed like a bear?
Do not talk like a baby.
Okay.
She's not dressed. That's just comfortable clothing right there.
It is. It's yeah. So
Does
she's.
your mom have the same outfit?
Oh, good.
What'd you ask?
Does your mom have the same outfit?
No.
They don't-
I wish she would feel comfortable.
Yeah.
it's just-
All right.
I can't imagine them making one that tall.
What are you watching? What are you watching?
That lucky.
Well, what is it?
Remember what I said last time?
Superbook?
John
Okay.
Wick 4.
I got coming with me.
As she drags the cat along.
Yeah. Early UFC fights. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
What-
Yeah, go ahead.
oh no, that's
I know we're kind of talking about before we went live, the picture behind you with the fighting and stuff. It's like, do you miss that?
I do. So this was in Japan. It was a 10-day notice. I had been out of jiu-jitsu. I had been out of MMA. MMA I'd been out of for like a few years, and jiu-jitsu I think I'd been out of for 6 months because of the situation that I was going through, and I needed a break from it. And you know, Cyborg came up and said, hey, she called, actually. She was traveling back stateside, and she had a layover in China.
Awesome. Yeah.
She called and said, hey, Brolik, I got this opportunity for you. And I was real hesitant. And she, you know, I said, well, I don't know. I was staying at my best friend's house in this little tiny half bedroom type thing with my daughter, and just got out of an abusive situation that I didn't realize at the time was an abusive situation, and was coming to terms with a lot of that stuff. And I didn't know. And she said, well, God will provide. That's all she said. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And so I went and I lived on her couch with my 2-year-old, you know, and went and I trained in the evening, and then I went and ran early morning. So baby sat there, slept in the morning while I took off and went for however long I was supposed to go run for, just to get the time difference, and went and trained at night, and that was it on a 10-day notice. Went over, and it was a wonderful experience. I wish I could still continued. Just things came up. I tried. I honestly did. I started training, and that was my goal, was the key. I used to travel, like she learned how to eat and do everything in the vehicle on the way, on the road and stuff. And we would travel out to Huntington Beach out there and go travel with Chris, train with Chris on certain days. And then I had mornings, I had boxing, and then straight over to jujitsu. And then, you know, and it was made very difficult by external sources and stuff. So yeah, I do miss it, and I wish that I could continue. I actually she really enjoys it, and we went back to jiu-jitsu for a little bit, and I realized there's still some mental stuff that I have to overcome because of things that had happened. And it was funny because when she started, she kind of looked at me and was like, "Are you sure it's okay that I can, like, I'm allowed to do this?" And she doesn't remember when she was super small. She used to do it all the time. Like, it was just normal. Like, when she went somewhere and played with other kids, her head pressure was like, "Here, let's go play." And I'm like, "No, we're not in the, no, they're normal, like, regular kids. Like, they don't understand this, you know." She was confused. So now she's confused because we hadn't done it in a while. And so she figured it out. Man, once she figured out, hey, I can go ahead and be aggressive, man, that little girl was like, "Dude, I'm just going to take everybody. I'm going to do this. I'm going to run around and figure it out as I go." And so, so at some point I do intend for her to, and I, to go ahead and get back into that training. So it was, I mean, so
is it weird, Mark? Like, not weird, but like, I know you're the guy you learned Krav Maga from, Avi's. I just noticed he's been more active on social media and stuff. It's like, as your instructors and people who kind of helped you along the way, martial arts and stuff like that, as they get older, do you feel, is it a weird feeling to see your person that taught you get older, and like, is there ever any fear where you're ever going to let them down as they get older and not like pass on what you've learned the right way? Like, is it like, because I've always, some of my favorite teachers and people I've worked and trained with, as they get older, that stuff happens in life, and I'm just like, I feel sad, not for the time I got to spend with them, but because they are getting to the point now where they can no longer do what helped me become who I am today. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I've been pretty fortunate. The two people who have been massive in my training, especially Avi. So, you know, he's a few years older than me, but I look at my situation now, and I look at the people that I've been very blessed to learn from, and I just embrace that. You know, everybody gets old. Not everybody gets old, but if you're blessed and fortunate enough to become seasoned and get older, nobody wants to see people they care about deteriorate, without doubt. I'm thankful that I'm not at that stage yet where I see that happening. However, we have a circle. Is it circle of life or cycle of life? What is it? Hakuna Matata? Help me out here.
Circle of life.
Thank you, circle of life, right? I'm not getting any younger. They're older than me. They're not getting any younger. And I just look at the upside of it. And the fact that my story with him is so unique.
Yeah.
And so unique that I just have not a smugness, but I have just a big, excuse my expression, there's no other way of saying it, a big shit-eating grin at my relationship with him. And I'm supposed to be going back to Israel in May. I'm waiting. They're talking about flying me over.
Yeah.
But I've made it clear I'm not going there to teach. Like, you want me to come over, I'm coming over for food and dancing and celebrations. I'm coming back to enjoy the people that I spent 20 years of my life around. But I don't want to teach. Right.
I always laugh when Marcus comes up with these, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm not teaching. Anytime it comes to teaching, and he says, I don't want to teach anymore. I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to do this. I always find it very interesting. And I say, hey, remember that whole thing of tell God what you think you should be doing, and he's going to get a good laugh. Because when he first got here, he didn't want to do teaching in that capacity, and he's like, well, I want to try something else. And I so kindly reminded him that, hey, like, what he's been able to do is a blessing, and God can use that now that he's him and
Yep.
he's in a different place. He can use that in many different ways that, Marcus is not aware of, or you or I could even fathom and stuff. So I just find it interesting that he thinks he's going to go back over to Israel and that he's going to, not teach and everything and just say, oh, I just want to go visit. Well, you might want to visit, and that's fine, and you'll still get to do that. However, I guarantee you there will be some sort of learning and teaching, reviewing something. It doesn't have to be as intense as it was before, but there will be something, maybe a friend, or hey, can you, like, this is my, there's just so many different things. So I always laugh when Marcus decides to say.
So John, you're looking at a prime real life example of when I open my mouth, and as soon as it came out, and I heard the first breath come out of her, I was like, ah. And she's not wrong. Like, she's not wrong. And that's, I don't know if that's more frustrating, because I'd like to say that she's wrong occasionally.
Yeah.
At this point in time, so far, I have not had the opportunity, perhaps some other time, but she's not wrong. And again, she and I have both been studying huge about fear and using fear in your verbiage. And so that whole comment of I'm not going to teach is just based on old garbage.
Yeah.
And so she's not wrong. And should I get the opportunity to go back to Israel, whatever will happen, and I'm going to smile while I do it.
Crystal, when you brought up Cyborg, which you mentioned hey, put everything in God's hands. When it comes to athletes, I'll stick to athletes, but it could be anyone in entertainment. When it comes to athletes, I find before I used to get like, when someone wins a game, it's like the first thing an athlete says is, oh, thank God. Well, knowing who this person is outside, like you just got to fight with your wife or husband, and like you abused them, or you got drunk driving. So like all this stuff that happens when they say this, I used to get so mad that the first thing that came out of their heads when they won a game is, oh, praise God, all this. Now I'm getting to the point where it's like, at least they're saying something about God. And so maybe that's a change of me. But then when it comes to someone like Cyborg or Tim Tebow, and there's a bunch of other athletes too there, I think Tim Duncan, win or loss, they're always, God's the first thing that comes in their mouth and the last thing that leaves. It's like, I resonate with people like that, because it's like, well, hold on a second. God is not only there when you win, he's there when you lose too, or that journey between both. It's like, how do you guys, when you hear that from an athlete, outside of certain athletes or people that say that, I don't know if I can believe some of these people, because it seems like a cool thing to say. But if you're Tim Tebow, who talks about believing in God through ups and downs his whole career, they'll vilify him, saying he's a garbage. You can't talk about God. But if this star receiver makes a touchdown catch and he's a piece of shit off the field, he thanks God. Oh, it's okay to say it then. It's such a weird, like, kind of talk me through this, because I get so frustrated clearly when I hear and see this, because I'm like, well, hold on a sec, you can't have it both ways here.
So like with Cris was actually a big part in my renewal of faith. Very big part. What you see with her is what you get. Yeah. She will do a live, and she'll be driving down the street and she's singing and praising. She does it in English, she does it in Portuguese, like it doesn't matter. She goes to church, you see it, and you can see that, just like, and hers is different. Tim Tebow is different. He has more of a reach in certain areas. He's been led to do different things.
Yeah.
I say athletes that don't portray that, people will see that when you follow them. You'll see, oh, well, they're not really they're not showing, they're hypocritical, or maybe they're just not comfortable yet, or maybe their part that they're in right now, it might have taken all that they could just to muster, glory to God, or they think it is cool, but that's a seed. That's a seed. And so it's not my place to get upset or to get frustrated. If somebody's mentioning God, guess what? Somebody heard it somewhere, and that is a seed that just got planted. Or somebody has heard about God before, but didn't go anywhere else. And so now they're looking up to this athlete and they hear that, and it has watered that seed a little bit. And so now they might hear somebody else say it, or God will put somebody else in their path, right? Because now they're just a little bit more curious. It doesn't have to do. So in the Bible, it does tell us that we are responsible for planting and watering. God is the one that causes the increase. So whether an athlete is, or anybody that has a following, or any person, whether they influencer, athlete, what have you, if they mention it and they're not true about it, that's between them and God.
Right.
That is between them and God. And I've had to learn to not allow the enemy, the devil, to use that emotional response, because then that just closes me off, because now my emotions are dictating my reactions. My emotions are now dictating how I do or react, or how I think about something, all because of somebody else. And I can't control this athlete. I can't control that person. I will tell you this, though, that when you watch a lot of Brazilian athletes, they each one will give thanks to God. And, they are the ones that actually, that culture gave me a lot of strength, because they're fearless with it. They're shameless with it. Like they could care less if you agree with them or not. They are going to give their thanks. They're going to give their praise. And I looked at that in different athletes and in different just themselves. They might not live what people consider to be a Christian life or perfect life. And well, they're doing this and they're doing that. Okay, well, we're all human. We're all going to mess up. There was only one person that was ever perfect, and that was Jesus Christ. And that's it. The laws and the rules and the commandments, those were made to show us that we need God and that we are all imperfect.
Yeah.
Right. And then Jesus came. So then that way, now we have grace, and we're not condemned to death because we mess up. Right. And so I look at that, and I see that type of behavior, no matter how small it is, as, hey, that's one person that's going to see that, and they might have needed just that little bit of more strength to be able to say to a friend, or maybe they did a podcast somewhere and just mentioned it. Because I know the first time I mentioned that my faith was a part of my healing and my overcoming of situations, I was very nervous about it, and it was very brief. And you would look at my life at that point and be like, the same thing. Well, she said that this about God, but look at what she's doing. It's a journey, it's a process, and everybody's gonna grow at different speeds. And then the devil, you got to remember, there's an enemy loose, and he's going to attack as soon as you say, yes, I give my life, or yes, I want to learn more. Yes, I want to seek you out. Yes, this is what I want to do. Yes, I surrender. He's going to come in full force and just try to disrupt that and distract that. And it can be the most subtle thing, as like, for example, you getting frustrated. Right. And so now your emotions take over, and what do you do when you get like that? Do you turn to the word, or do you turn to something else? Oh, I'm just going to go over here, or I'm going to watch this show, or I'm going to go write this over here.
Yeah.
But now you've let your emotion dictate, oh, well, in order for me to go and deal with this, I'm not turning to God, I'm going to turn over here. And then eventually you'll learn, and you'll see, oh, that was the enemy trying to do that. So God, please help me in this situation. Right.
Yeah.
So I've come to learn not to allow things like that to even if I do like get frustrated with something, not to allow it to dictate my actions.
Right. Such an
So
interesting. You bring up good and evil. And last night I recorded a podcast with one of the guys from Shine Down and then the superintendent of Skinwalker Ranch, and we're talking about everything from UFOs to like how religion's tied to science, like this idea a lot of these people talking down that there's a battle versus good versus evil with these extraterrestrial, and not to get like into all that right now, but like the idea of good and evil, we spent like 20 minutes trying to figure out what exactly that means. And it's like we've all kind of talked and said that pre-pandemic, and I'm using that just as a time frame where I first noticed a change. Right now, it seems like everyone, if you walk down a grocery store aisle and someone's happy, you can feel like a really good aura, presence about them. You want to say hello. They're infectious in a good way. And then some days you can go down there, more often than not for me, people are like cold, their shoulders are down, they're looking down, they're sad, they're depressed, they're whatever. Before the pandemic, when we weren't told how to walk down an aisle and do whatever, everyone was happy. Like I had so many conversations with strangers and people, like everyone was a friend. Like I never had a bad altercation. Now more so than ever, everywhere I go in public and crowds and stuff, I'm just like, I can sense like a dark cloud. Now, the part of me with my religion and faith and all that, I'm just like, is this physically good versus evil? Like, what's this? Like, do you guys sense that type of like aura in like the world today?
Well, hold on. I'm going to jump in real quick, and then she's going to say some things that are going to. So just my as soon as you were uttering any of that, John, I have an odd concept. How about be the light?
Yeah.
Right. You see people in bed. I'm not talking about going in and
Yeah, I'm not hugging a stranger. I'm not.
No, I'm just saying, hey, how are you? Hey, that's a nice top.
Yeah.
Now they can still be a miserable SOB, but what is she said, plant. Oh yeah, God will sit there and take care of everything. You don't know what that person's going through. So why not? It takes nothing. It takes nothing to be like, hey, how are those beans? Those beans are good, huh? I should probably get those beans. Or just having some kind of interaction. And before, just give me 5 seconds, brother, because I can. She's gonna pounce. Boy, just wait 1 second. So every day I go for a walk. 5 in the morning, I'm walking, and every day as cars are going by, I wave at them. I wave at them every single day, and it gets a bit tired sometimes because that right arm gets moved. I wave at every single person because that might be the only wave or only attention that they get in that day.
Which is crazy.
And I see every single day when they're coming back 5, 6 o'clock at night, I'm waving at them. They're caught off guard. They're waving. They smile afterwards because I'm smiling. Your smile during someone's dark moments might be the only thing possible to give them just half a fraction of hope. Right? So, I mean, yes, I mean, maybe the world is like that. Again, I don't know. I just be the light. Be a light, not the light. Be a light for someone. You don't know the impact. And there we go. So here we go. Go ahead, Brolik.
It's division. So the enemy doesn't like unity, right? So pre-pandemic, there was more unity. People went places. People, you still have your knuckleheads and everything else. However, people were, they were united in certain areas, whether it be with family members, friends, whether it be on a larger scale with, in workplaces and on all of that. Things got so divided and so intensely divided that the enemy was able to now single out, like, because he's the father of lies. And the Bible tells us that he is Satan is the father of lies. And so once you're single and you're divided like that, anybody listening to this, when you're alone by yourself, what happens to your thoughts? They start running rampant.
Yeah.
Sometimes you come up with scenarios in your head that have, or maybe you suddenly something triggers a thought from, a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, and you never had resolve with a person or a situation. And then, you start thinking of that. And then you have a conversation with that person in your head, or you start sitting there saying, oh, well, you did this person, you literally have a conversation or you make up a scenario in your head, and then it turns around and being like, well, you didn't want me in your life anyway, and so what's the point? And now your whole mindset is now you've worked yourself up, and the enemy's gotten in your brain, because that's where the battlefield is your mind. He's gotten in there, and now you're like, well, the only thing I can do is seclude myself. I'm going to do this, or I'm not going to trust as much, or if I go here. And so when you get out into society and you go to the store because you have to, right? Or you go someplace, you literally are in your own like SEAL team, right? 3-foot world. You're literally in a negative way. It's not 3-foot world on the teams where that's what keeps like focus and safety and mission, right? It's 3-foot world, cut everybody off. I'm going to be here. So you're thinking about yourself, you're thinking about where I got to get going. What do I have to get done? You're not being considerate of other people. You're not even thinking of other people, right? So there's no kindness behind anything. There's no, the fruits of the spirit are missing: the love, the joy, the peace, the patience, the kindness, the faithfulness, the self-control, all of the things. I missed one, but yes. And so all of that's missing. And so the division, right? And then that's what, and when we look at the Bible, it's the same thing. Like it shows you and it teaches you that, right? That when you come together as one, where 2 or more are gathered in my name, I'm there, right? So when you're together and you're fellowshipping or you're speaking, he's there. So what does the enemy want to do? Any enemy, like even if we want to take the spiritual realm out of it, and you want to just go in the worldly realm, when you have an enemy, they're evil and it's dark, right? What do they want to do to the goodness and those that are trying to do the right thing? They're trying to separate that so they can, and it's the same thing. Look at wildlife. Packs, what do? They single out the one animal and they divide them so the pack, who is together, can go ahead and have victory and get their food, right? And it's the same thing. So if the enemy, if Satan can get in enough minds to divide people, divide their way of thinking, even if we have different views, right? Jesus sat with sinners.
Yeah.
He didn't allow it to change him, but he just planted seeds in them, let them mull on it. They still had to go through their trials and tribulations to learn, to understand, to grow. And then once they realized, they're like, oh, well, let the clouds part, angels sing, they understood. It's the same thing now, right? So you go and you plant that smile to somebody. Man, Neela sits there and does cartwheels in the store. She does all sorts of things. She's got good discernment, but that kid will just walk by and be like, hi, and it throws people off. But they say hi, and you can see their demeanor change. But in her doing that, I've started doing that.
Yeah.
More so. Like, I'm not as, okay, well, here, I'm just going to stay to myself, get what I need. And I'm aware of people. However, I'm not going to interact with anybody. And that's still wrong. So it's the unity, and just at least, like Marcus was saying, you plant a seed when you're kind, and it goes back to our beginning when I just extended an olive branch to be kind. And he was like, whoa, because it's gotten, everything's so divided that everybody's mindsets have changed. Yeah. And so you can go back, think about what has gone on in the past, how people were united. There's things that you can learn from, grow from, and change. Don't live in the past, good or bad, but then use that and say, okay, well, this needs to be done now. We can also modify it to this day and age and stuff, but it needs to be unity, because, you know, what is it? Where did I hear it? You know, it's like one finger isn't going to do anything, but, you know, you get all those fingers together in a fist and it can strike a mighty blow.
Right.
Right. So it's same thing.
Yeah. A twig is not strong, but you wrap a whole bunch of twigs together and they're unbreakable. Right. I just wanted to sit there and feel, because I liked your fist. I was like, I know there's a Tecumseh saying in there somewhere.
How to change when it comes to like physically like training, like if you want to get bigger arms or legs, you can train it. If you want to throw better, you can train throwing. When it comes to like strengthening your mind, what are some exercises you guys do to kind of, because I know like, because it's always for me, I used to be not negative, but like kind of what we just talked about. My first thought would always be, well, why is that person saying this? But now I'm like, through repetition of myself and holding myself accountable, I'm saying stuff that I should have been saying since day one in that regard. So like I'm kind of, it takes practice with repertoire to get that way. But for people that have like that difficulty of kind of changing their mindset, how do you like go about doing that?
I snorted because as you're talking, all I picture is Brolik being like, okay, just give me a chance. Just give me one. I'm gonna punch. I'm not gonna say nothing on this one because I guarantee you what she's gonna say is gonna be far superior to what I have going on. Go ahead, Brolik. Let him have it. Both barrels.
Declarations. So I have a board that as I listen to my Bible studies, or I listen to whatever I'm listening to for the word, I have those down. Declarations. Any verse can be taken and put into a declaration, right? So it says, fear not, you know, what can man do to me? So you take that and declare it. I declare that I will not fear today. I declare that all is well today. I declare, and it might, you know, and when something comes up and, you know, trials and tribulations are going to happen. And, you know, God didn't remove the lions from the lion den.
Right.
He kept it, you know, he didn't take Daniel out of it. He didn't remove the lions. He was still there, but he dealt with that situation. Right. So it's the same thing. He's not going to remove that trial and that tribulation. There's something there that we can learn from it, but he does guarantee that it's not going to come against us, hurt us, you know, be our downfall. And so you take those and you declare it, and you get in the word, even if it's, you read one chapter a day. That's it. Like if you wanted, some people say, oh, read like 15 minutes, read it. Sometimes that can be overwhelming because 15 minutes can lead to like 3 chapters, maybe 1 chapter, right. You know, it depends on what book you're in. Right. So you just read a chapter, start with John if you need to. Right. Cause he's the book of love more or less. Right. So, but start there, start in Proverbs and Psalms. You can take any one of those and turn them into a declaration. And there's Psalms 24 verses 4 and 5, or Psalms 23 verses 4 and 5. I can't remember, but it says, you know, teach me, O Lord, teach me your ways, show me your path, lead me, guide me. On you I wait all the day. So you take that verse and you declare that. And you say that every morning, just like all these motivational quotes that you hear people say, I am great, you is smart, you is pretty, you is kind, right? Like all that type of stuff, because it gets in your brain, right? And that's where your battle is at. It's in your mind. And so you do the same thing with the word of God, because that is the truth. That is your sword. That is your battle axe. God is your battle axe. And that's something that I actually have written down. And then you say that in the morning, you know, you wake up. God, thank you for the breath in my lungs. Good morning, Jesus. I need you today. today's going to be a good day. And then when something goes wrong, you say, nope, God, I give it to you. You might not remember right away. Right. And it's a process. Look, there's time. It took me quite a while. Like, the misconception about all of this is that once you give your life to Christ and you're just all of a sudden everything poof, like it's magic. It's not. And you might hear something here today that you're going to say, you know what, that makes complete and total sense. And then you might do it 1 or 2 days and then that's it. Right? You stop doing your declarations. You're not listening to the word. You're not doing anything. And then everything goes a little haywire. And then you realize the Holy Spirit will convict your heart and say, hey, you stop declaring these things of saying that, you know, you're good. You're safe. You're equipped. You're Psalms 90. I say Psalms 91 every single day. Mm-hmm. And there's days where certain parts of that stick out more than other days, but I declare Psalms, and I change the words sometimes and add things in there, right? I break it down to where it covers me and it covers my daughter. If I'm having a hard time sleeping, I will put the pastor. I listen to Creflo Dollar, and that's the pastor I choose to listen to. And I've seen tremendous growth in him and a complete renewal of mind. He's no longer the person he used to be. And that's inspiration right there. Right. You know, to see, because everybody looks at pastors and says, oh, well, they're, you know, in a different group. Like they don't make mistakes, as if they're not humans, but they are. Mm-hmm. And so when he was like, hey, he actually said, hey, all the old stuff that I did on tithing, throw it out. Because I was looking in the Old Testament. I was looking at this. This is the way I was taught. And as I studied, my mind was renewed. The Holy Spirit worked in me. I was given revelation knowledge, understanding, wisdom. I understood how to rightly divide the Bible. And here, this is what tithing is. It no longer says this. When the Old Testament, when Jesus died, the Old Testament is more of a guideline. It's no longer... It's the shadow. In here, Jesus, everything, a new covenant, right? And he explained it to say, you know, prior to COVID, we had an agreement, right? You and I, we have a contract. And then after COVID, we have to renew that contract and come up with a new one. And it's going to be a better contract. Well, are you still going to live underneath that old contract? Or are you going to go ahead and be underneath the new one that we created? Yeah, it's the new one. It's no longer the old one. The old one you can still look at, learn from, see some things, and use it to help you with the new one if need be. But we're underneath that new agreement, that new covenant. And so when you read the word, and I know Marcus likes to listen to his, which is fine. Me personally, you get something more when you actually sit down and you read it. Because if you don't understand something, what do? You might write it down. I don't know how many times I've gone and said, I don't know what this word means. Eschewed. I had no idea what that word meant. Right. I had no idea. But then now your vocabulary, and you can communicate with people better. Your mindset is becoming stronger. And just like when you, even if it's not in the spiritual realm and you're not reading the Bible, and people want to get their minds strong from TBI or anything else, what do? You do puzzles, you do games, you work your mind out, you sit down. It's the same thing. It's the same concept. So that's what I do. So when I'm like, if I'm struggling to sleep, I will put the Word of God on. I will put that on. And as I'm sleeping, it brings a sense of peace. I'm listening to the Word. God is fighting my battles. I have strength as I'm falling asleep. And that is what I'm hearing in my subconscious when I'm sleeping, right? I'm not hearing crazy like I used to, used to bring me comfort. Used to listen to war, anything was shooting, any helicopter shooting, combat, anything, because of what stage I was in. And that brought me peace. That brought me comfort. As I've grown and as I've, become more intimate with God and my walk in Christ, this is now what I do. And there's a difference when I don't do that. And, you get those attacks coming left and right, and you suddenly recluse and you don't want to read the word as much, or you don't want to do something. You can tell the difference, and everything. And that's where having, fellowship comes in to play as well, because then they can help edify you and lift you up and encourage you and snap you out of it.
Yeah. I feel like I just went to church. Like, you have such a unique way of presenting stuff that I think sometimes when people look to the Bible, like, even now when I pick it up, some of the stuff, there's a lot of words I don't know. There's structures I don't know how it's put together, what voice is being read in or being written or spoken in. And there's a lot of stuff can still go over my head, but you're able to kind of present that self in a way that it's understanding. And I think a lot of times the Bible is portrayed as this big scary thing, not in itself, but like the concept of it, where it used to be like, oh, read a chapter of the Bible like, dude, you realize how big this Bible is? Like, what? Like, give me a Where's Waldo book instead. I'm happy as a kid, right? But now when I get older, I'm kind of like, if you put the time in, you can truly, really understand how much of an important tool the Bible is to kind of go about your day. You're not gonna have a perfect day. You're not gonna be a perfect human. Far from it. But at least be like, put the right guidelines or like the bone structure to kind of like go on with your day, like how you should be living.
Well, you have that tool. It's a tool. Your tool in your tool drawer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when something comes up, you're able to say, you know what? Let me go get that tool that I need for this part of my day. That the enemy decided, hey, I want to kick you in your shin right now. See how you handle this, and whatnot. So,
well, and when we bring up the Bible, especially for somebody who is, let's say you're new, or you're not even new, you're like, I don't even know. There's the negative association with, well, I've got the Bible and I don't know what to do with it. Well, any book. What do you do with any book? Read it. Well, what part do I read? Well, as Brolik said, try John, because it's the book of love, man. You got to get a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. And I don't understand the verbiage, and I don't do this, and I don't do this. These are all ways to stop you from ingesting it. Correct. And now Brolik and I have a difference of opinions on this, and that's cool. It's cool. We don't agree on everything. But if I'm talking to somebody and they're like, okay, I don't know what to do with the Bible, the language. Well, yes, and I could just gnashing her teeth right now. She's ready to pounce. I come from the standpoint of, I would rather have someone who is lost get into the Word, and from getting into the Word, grow. And I'm going from my own personal experience, right? I had a Bible, and it was easier language, and I was reading a little bit, and it becomes a healthy, and I don't want to use the word addiction, a healthy growth. And you're going to go at your own speed, and you're going to see what you're supposed to see at the time you see it. Where I will not be cool with is people using the fear of, well, the Bible's too big. It's just, I don't get it. It's too much. Hold on a second. I'm going to take chunks of it. I would rather you took in the Word, however you take in the Word, so that when you get to a point where you're like, well, you know what, that Bible just, it's not getting to me. Well, okay, go look at this one. My biggest beautiful part of my day is getting a word, getting some part of the Word, and looking at it in different translations, so that I have a better understanding of it. And then having a conversation with somebody about it, and not a conversation of, this is what I think it is. I just want to talk about it. Or what's a verse? Like, I get people who text me every day. Hey man, here's a verse. Here's what I'm feeling. Whether I agree with it or not, it doesn't matter. We're conversing the Word of God and having fellowship, and fellowship manifests in different ways. When you and I bullshit on the phone, okay, or we send videos back and forth, we're fellowshipping. Yeah. And all I'm trying to do is just sit there. And my point to this is showing compassion and love to someone else, love people where they're at, not where you expect them to be. Imagine a world filled with people who just love them where they're at. and say, okay, man, this is where you're at right now. Knowing that you're going to fall backward, fall forward, fall sideways, just love them where they're at. And that's just me. This is how I feel about it. That's it. It's how
and
I
this
live.
is why God uses every person in a different way. And this is one of the things that I was telling Marcus when we first became friends. And he was saying, oh, well, I'm not doing this, and I'm not going to do this, and I want to find something else to do with myself. And that was something that I said is, well, you have a unique background. Your background is completely different than my background of what I've gone through. And, you're going to reach people that I can't reach.
Correct.
And I can reach people that you can't reach. Or what's going to happen is he'll say something, and then I can go off of that, and then it gets explained a little bit differently. And then they get a full picture, right? Or the next person that they run into after him, God can say, okay, well, he did what I needed him to do. He listened. And so now I can work through this person over here, and they'll be able to understand and receive this that I have for them here, whereas they wouldn't have been able to do that. For Marcus, it was whatever Bible he had, that's what it was. But he was not big on words at the time. And I have always been. And so for me, there are verses that are missing out of certain versions. There are things, Neela. No, ma'am. It's all hanging up. Be gone. Okay. Thank you. So there are verses that are missing. There are verbiage that is changed.
Yeah.
Some words I personally feel as if you don't need to dumb things down for people to understand. Right. And I'm not saying that in a negative, people are dumb type of way, but Marcus and I had this conversation about vocabulary the other day, where the vocabulary and the way people use the vocabulary was like way up here, and they communicated in such a way that you could tell they read books, they used the words, and the words had deeper meanings.
Yeah.
And it encompassed 5 other meanings, right? So long suffering, that means patience. Which one do you gather more out of, long suffering or patience?
Right.
Because you're suffering long suffering. Patience, you've shortened it up, and people have changed it, like, have some patience. Patience is good. It's good to have some patience. Well, okay, patience for me is, all right, well, I was patient for 5 minutes, what's going on, right? Long suffering has more of a root to it, to where you're long suffering. Or loving kindness, right? It's a loving kindness. It's a deeper meaning. And so that I try to tell Neela, stop using the word cool. There's other words. Let's use our vocabulary. And so for me, God will reveal to you what you need to know. You will get, nothing's missing. As for Marcus, he had God put somebody in his life to where they came in and said, hey, well, look at this. And he wanted to grow more. And so he took that and said, okay, where I struggle with his theory is that they'll get it, and they get the wrong words, and then they don't want to change it, right? Yeah. Or they're like, oh, but this Bible says this, and then this one, or they don't get it. That's my head. That's what I feel like. And so for me, I prefer saying, here's this, and then you talk to God and you say, I don't get this. I don't understand what this means. And then you might listen to your pastor, you might listen, and that's what going to church is for, you
Right.
know, and that's what Wednesday night Bible study or fellowship is for, you know. It's so that way God works through all of those. Because there's times that Marcus and I have conversations about the craziest things or how we're feeling or what's going on, or, you know, just in regular conversation, not thinking anything of it. And the next thing we know, you know, God's said, here, you had a question about fasting, you know, and I'm like, well, I don't get this, I don't get that. And somewhere the pastor that I'm listening to suddenly is talking about fasting, and there's revelation knowledge.
Right.
So revelation knowledge is not all going to come to you all at once. So when you read the Bible, it's not like reading, you know, a Jack Carr novel, right? You're not going to sit there and follow it every step of the way and be like, oh, and sometimes you might look at some of the, you know, you'll read some of it and be like, oh, well, I didn't kind of get what he was doing here. But then later on in another chapter, you'll be like, oh, I get why that happened. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing. You might not fully get it, but where are you at? And if you read some of the stories, the disciples didn't even understand things because God had them blind to it at the time, because they were not ready to understand. So where are you at in your walk?
Yeah. Where
are you at in your relationship? If he gives you too much, what are you going to do? You're not going to do anything with it, right? Just like he can only, if your hands are full, right? If I've got a bunch of ducks in my hand, and you're like, hey, I got this deer over here I want to give you. Well, what do I got to do? I got to put all this down so I can grab that, right? And this is the next step up. Well, he can't give me anything until I get what's going on. So once I get this taken care of and I learn how to cut and I clean and I do all the things, then he's like, okay, well, here's this. Here's your next step. Here's the evolution. Here's the revelation knowledge. Here's what you were looking for. And it's now you look at it, you're like, oh, I get that. And now you're able to talk to somebody else and explain it to where they will end up getting it, or they were confused in that. And that's why I say, you know, just, you know, read a chapter. And if you got to start off like, you know, Marcus, listen to it, and it'll spark. And you say, oh, well, let me read what that meant, or let me read, I didn't fully get that, you know, so let me read what's going on. When I'm doing a Bible study, I usually listen when it's live, and then I'll go back and I take notes, because my notes are extensive, and it takes me it'll take me a week to get to 30 minutes because a 5-minute segment, it takes me an hour, because I'll write down what they said. And then if it applies, like, or if I want to make a declaration out of it, or if as I'm listening to it, it's something that I feel like, okay, well, I'm going to write this down because it applies to my life and my child's life. And this is how I'm going to write this down, so I remember. So when I go back through, I have those declarations written down. I have those notes written down to speak to me, but also I can give that book to somebody like I did Marcus. Right. I said, here, let me share this with you, because I might not be able to convey it, but the way that I wrote it down and all my color coordinating that I do, he's going to be able to read it, and he'll say, oh, okay. That's where the breakdown into the language changes for me. Yeah. I'd rather read it in the Bible without scripture missing, without words altered, and then study on that. Might have to look up a couple words here and there, but then you're also asking God, hey, can you please help me on this? And then you'll have a conversation with somebody else. And in that conversation, you'll get the revelation knowledge that you were seeking, or you'll get led by the Spirit, or that I don't know what feeling that was, but something led me to just look this up, you know. But you have to, like Jesus said, if you've watched The Chosen, he makes a point in there in the last episode of season 2, you know, Matthew asks him, he says, well, you know, what do you mean you'd buy this and this? And he tells him, this whole thing in very simple terms. And he goes, well, why don't you just say that? He goes, because I want people to want to find me. I want people to want me, not because it's easy, but you have to want. That's why it says knock and I'll answer, seek and you shall find. Right. And I think a lot of people, you gotta realize though too, something that I had to learn was, the way you think you're going to receive it, the way you think you're going to get the knowledge is not necessarily it, because our brains can only comprehend so much. That's the spiritual realm. Anything. So he's going to say, here you go. And you're going to be like, whoa, I didn't know that I needed that person removed from my life. You know, and you might have a falling out, but that's because you didn't listen, you know? So, you know, he's working and he's still moving and doing it, but you have to want that. You have to seek that out. And and in seeking that out, all of the other things will be given unto you, you know?
I had no idea how much I needed this talk. And I think it's always funny when I always text Marcus, and now I can text Crystal. Hey, I just want to hear. It's fun to talk about this stuff because there's not a lot of platforms out there that allow it, let alone people that aren't afraid just to openly talk about this. And I know in the beginning we kind of talked about like alienating people, that why are you talking this? Like, I remember the first time I had someone on here that I started openly talking about my faith, and then after the episode aired, people like, hey, this one person that was with the podcast at the beginning was just like, I didn't realize it was become this faith-based or political. And I go, hold on a second. The politics I only talk about are if you're good or bad. Like, there's no in between. Like, I might differ on the Constitution and amendments and laws and stuff, but hold on, in this religion thing, this is just who I am. I apologize if I offended you, but whatever. The next week, I have an atheist on the show, amazing person, all over the History Channel with dealing with like paranormal stuff, and this talk we have about religion and like how she found herself it was just cathartic. It was awesome hearing someone else be proud of what they believe in. And, like, there was no animosity. Like, we could ask questions. It was awesome. After that episode airs, that original person that was offended by me goes, hey, sorry I jumped the gun. I didn't realize you'd allow other people to talk about being themselves too. And I go, well, why would I? This isn't what this is. And it's like, it kind of, talking to people like both of you and anyone else, it's just like, it's cathartic, it's healing, especially for me with the religion and faith and Christianity. Like, I will do whatever I can to help preserve the freedom and the people to give them a platform to actually talk about that. And it's just like, it's unfortunate we're at this place where you are a villain if you wave the American flag, or you want to, if you're pushing to have the Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer in schools now and stuff. So it's just like, I'm going to push back as I can. And if I lose people along the way, safe journeys. I still love you, but I'm on this boat. And if there's 100 of you or just one of me, I'm still going ahead. That's how I'm going to look at it.
And well, John, and I'm going to say this, and this directly, what I'm going to say directly correlates to Brolik, because it was her that kind of gave me a friendly verbal shake. Okay. And I'm saying it because I'm gonna repeat basically what she said to you. In the beginning, and you remember this online, I would always say about the universe, I was always tiptoeing around stuff, right? And she was really kind about it, but forceful about, look, man, this is my interpretation. She didn't actually say this, but basically she shook me and been like, look, get your head out of your butt, and, you're about Jesus. Be about Jesus. Now, she was very much cooler about it than I'm not doing it justice, but I don't want to waste a whole bunch of time on it. The fact is being bold in your faith doesn't mean that you have to negate somebody else. However, your faith is your faith. And quite honestly, there's nothing wrong with having faith.
Right.
As long as you are not putting someone else down to build yourself up or making people feel less than because of who you are in your faith, you know, and there's a religion, the word religion, like when people sit there and go, oh, Marcus, you're really religious. I'm like, whoa, hold on. I walk with Jesus, man. And I'm about love.
Yeah.
Compassion. Whatever, most people I find that are coming and attacking or just strong in how they feel is because they've been hurt in the past from someone who was in a religious capacity, for lack of a better word. And what I love, my own job is to show them that, hey, there's two sides to a coin, and whatever you felt in the past about God, let me just, in my actions, in how I am, how I walk in faith, perhaps there's a different version. Perhaps if you'll give Jesus a shot, soften your heart, open your mind, renew it, and sit there and say, well, hey, okay, it's not all rules, as you know, Crystal and I are very on the same page on laws and regulations and rules. We have a new covenant, man. We have a New Testament. Okay? Jesus died for us. Rock and roll with that. Yeah. Okay? Forgiveness, loving each other. The only two commandments that matter. Love God with your heart, body, and soul, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And if you love yourself, then you got to love your neighbor, and vice versa, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right? I'm waiting for, I'm going to pause, and Crystal is.
Yeah.
Well, no, you said, so what I told Marcus was, because he would say universe or
light waves of dancing,
whatever he was. So he was trying to be all inclusive and not offend people and what they thought. And I said to him that, you know, his reasoning was, well, you know, they'll eventually, you know, come and see, or I just don't want them to like run off, and I told him that no. I said no. I said I said, you know, because you're misleading them. You're misleading them, because if they think that, you know, the chakras and the light and the universe and all of this and all of those things, well, that they're going to keep thinking that, because you're putting that out. That's what you're saying. You're telling them, believe what you want, when really no, it's not that. That's what's gotten us into the situation that we're in, where everybody's living your truth. Well, it's not your truth. It's the truth, the word, the truth. I am the way, the light, the life, and the truth. I am the truth, right? And so, you know, I just told him, I said, just, you know, those that need to hear it will hear it, and those that don't want to, I said, they'll walk away. However, the seed has been planted, and at some point in time, they may come back and say, you know, or something will happen, and they'll say, you know what, Marcus mentioned, I remember this one video that this one guy said, and who was it? Oh yeah, you know, because he said the truth, and he wasn't ashamed and or fearful of what others would think or say, or how they would react, or offending someone, and stuff. And so that's what he ended up doing is that. So that's what it was basically, hey, no, because you're still leading them, saying what you're thinking is acceptable, when you've now shifted your faith, your eyes have been opened, you now see that veil has been removed, but you're still allowing others to, you're still blocking it. So what if somebody did that to you? And I always pose those questions to Marcus. I'm like, so when you were coming up, I said, what if somebody would have done that to you?
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want to deal with those kind of people anymore, what if somebody would have thought that about you, instead of listening to what God said and said, hey, this is how I'm going to handle this, and then leave it be. And then God will do the rest of the work. Like he's working, right? So just because we don't see that instant change, or we don't see anything, that doesn't mean that God's not working or that it's not happening and stuff. And so that's what I
Okay, I wasn't quite as eloquent. Okay, I did not.
Use a couple less words, Marcus. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm Dr. Seuss. Okay, and she's an Encyclopedia Britannica. All right.
One fish, two fish.
Yeah, red fish, blue fish. Yeah.
Guys, this has been.
So, and then real quick though, to go off the religion part aspect of it, Marcus is absolutely correct. Church hurt, you know,
is a real thing.
That's where I was. And a little piece of my testimony is that I was playing football and a pastor came out to pray for us at the football game.
Yeah.
And so then some of the team would go to the church, right? He'd recognize us at church, which it might have started off as like, oh, we're going because we get recognized in the football team and people will hear about us, right? It may have started off that way, but God works in those ways. And what happens is the seeds get planted. And so then eventually I start going to church just to go. And then during that time frame, I needed to speak. Some other stuff happened. And there was church hurt. And I vowed I would never step foot back in that church ever again. And I am not going to do something, right? And then I got into the situation that I was in, and it got really bad. And I would train with Cris every once in a while when she needed a training partner, and she had moved up to Orange County up that way. And so she was no longer in the San Diego area. And she came back down and she goes, "Hey, Brolik," she goes, I'm going to church. Come. She goes, "It starts at 10:30 or church is at 10:30. I said, "Okay, I'll be there." And of course, me, when I struggle, the enemy really messes with me in that area. I missed all of service. She gave me the start time, not the start time of when worship and everything started. And so by the time I got there and found parking, because it was a big old space, I'd missed it. However, I stepped foot back in that church. She didn't know that I had missed it. She didn't know that. We grabbed food afterwards, but I did step foot back in that church. Yeah. And that was the first step, literally. And then I said to myself, well, maybe I will go back and maybe things will be different. Maybe, Yeah. And so I went a few times. Somebody from jiu-jitsu invited me to come back, and I actually went. And then that was the second step. And then the third step was me going on my own. And then there was an incident. The devil tried real hard to get me back out. There was a couple incidences because I like to sit myself in a certain place, and they have designated areas at times when you have kids, and they say, "Oh, the family section's up at the top, way back over there." And I said, "You're nuts. I'm not going. This church is huge. If I need to get out in a quick, fast, and a hurry motion, I can't do that from up there." So no, right? And we were off on the side. There's nobody, because everybody likes to sit like front kind of, and I was perfectly fine sitting still down by the stage, but off
right
to the side, right? I was fine with that. And I had somebody come up and ask me, and I think it was the third time that day. And they're like, "We have this." I said, "You know what? If I can't sit where I want to sit," I said, "I'm done." And I turned around and I walked out. I was like, "I'm out. I'm done. I'm over this. This is my second attempt at coming here. I'm over it." Right. And God was like, "Ha! You think you're over it." Right. So there was somebody else that I knew, this other female that I had met in the same situation that I was in. And lo and behold, the situations were both friends. So it is befitting. But she was going to the same church, just a different area. Right. So it was one big old church, but they had little sub in different cities, right? So the screen would come down, the pastor would come out at the main church, but everybody would watch the same thing. Yeah, so everybody praised and worshiped in their own way. So certain things were different. So I went with her, and it started off as me just going on the weekends that my daughter was with me. And then it went to, okay, I got to go no matter what. And then I searched around and actually found one. And so, and then it was no matter what, I was going and I was going and I was receiving. And then the devil tried again, was like, hey, it's not Creflo, because Creflo teaches. I love the teaching aspect of it, right? Because I want the knowledge and I want to learn, and how do I apply this to my life and stuff. And where I was going, it was, great when you're first coming back, or if you're new to walking with Christ and whatnot. And in that, I felt like certain things were lacking. And so I was getting to the point to where I was saying, well, why should I go? I'm not getting anything out of this. And then God said, hold your horses. And I realized if there was something in church that I wasn't getting, I got the answers from online. And if something online from Creflo, who's like university level teaching, and I didn't get it, I'd go to church, and then it was broken down to like elementary school level. And I was like, oh, I get it. Oh, I understand. And so then I started seeing God working in that way with me. And so the devil just continuously was losing in trying to get me out of the church again, or trying to get me removed from going and learning and building that relationship. And it started off for me, it was a religious thing, right? I was taught that, hey, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. Well, no, that's all Old Testament. You don't. You try, you do your best. Those are guidelines.
Yeah.
And that's what grace is for, right? And if you go back to when Jesus was here before he died on the cross, I mean, really, if you look at it, what did the Pharisees do? It was a religious thing, and they didn't want to lose their status.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so here, you have to do this, come to me, do this. And that's where the religious part of it came. And that is what the devil has been using to push and say, and then it condemns people. Oh, well, if you don't believe this, or if you don't do this, then you're going to go to hell, or you're going to do this. And you condemn people into believing, well, do you want somebody to like you because they're afraid?
Right.
No, you want somebody to want you because they want to, and it's the same concept. And so it's not a religious thing. And so the part that I think people are starting to understand and realize, which is great, is it's not a religious thing. You don't have to do X, Y, and Z to get God to do. It's not, if you do this, then I will do this.
Right.
It's, I've done this, receive it. Believe, and you receive it. And so it literally is, I believe that Jesus Christ died for me. I believe that he is my savior. I believe that he is my provider and he takes care of me, and I trust in him. Mm-hmm. And I want a relationship with him, not out of fear. I am no longer, the old has been washed away. I am redeemed. I have been renewed. I might start anew a couple hundred times, and that's fine, because grace. Mm-hmm. And that goes for anybody, right? Yeah. You can mess up. And every time, Creflo has this thing where he says, there's a kid, a story that he tells, that there's a kid that, he's like, he told him, he goes, hey, every time you go to light up a joint or you go to roll something up, say, I am the righteousness of God, because you are, right? He had already accepted Christ, but he's still doing all the things, and stuff, and hadn't renewed his mind. And he said, I say that. So every time the kid would pull out a joint and he'd start to roll, I am the righteousness of God. He'd get it, I am the righteousness of God. Light it up, I am the righteousness of God. And eventually, as he does that, he goes to light it, and he looks at it and he goes, I'm the righteousness of God. Yeah. And the Holy Spirit convinced him. He's like, you don't need this. right? You don't need cigarettes. You don't need a vice. You don't need Jesus is that.
Yeah.
So when you say, hey, I'm struggling, God help me, even if you don't know what to say, help is a great word. That's all you, and he will make it happen. But just be prepared that when you say help, it might not come in the form that you think it's going to come in.
Yeah, but it
may come in the form of God removing and delivering you from all the people, the places, the things, the mindsets that were influencing you, your desire to watch certain shows, your desire to listen to certain music has now shifted. And now he's introducing you to the right people, to the right places, and to the right things. And if you try to hold on to the things he's removing, it kind of turns disastrous. But if you look at it, instead of getting emotional and upset and saying, well, God did this and he took this away. Well, you don't know what those people were talking about.
Right.
You don't know the inner workings over there, but he does. And he's got your best interest at heart. And I think that because the way people have always put somebody that put you down or put like, you got to do this, you got to be perfect. Society has made you think that you have to be a certain way because it's not a godly way. It's a worldly way. And that's why it says, don't conform to the ways of the world, right? Because you're never going to be good enough. And they're always going to try. It's always the next day. Oh, if I do this, if I do this, if I do this, God's like, just believe in me. Call on me. I'll help you out. I got you. You know? And so when you start doing that and you build that intimate relationship, right? Then you start recognizing that, and then that shift, that renewal starts to happen even more, that renewed mindset. Krefl actually even put it in a different way with the cell phones, right? You get that software update, right? Same phone, but it's a different update, right? So it's the same thing. You've accepted Christ into your life, but you still have the old software in your head, the religious software. So you need to update that. So you accept Christ in your life and you update that software, which is renewing your mind. And it's a daily thing. It's not I'm going to renew my mind and then, okay, I should be good.
Yeah.
Because you're going to falter and you'll be like, well, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. True story.
So it's a renewal daily. And then give yourself grace. If God's giving you grace, give yourself grace. Not necessarily, other people, don't depend on other people for that grace. Like, God loves you. Give yourself that grace. Like, it's as if when a baby's learning to walk and he falls down, do you chastise that child? Or do you say, oh, come on, get up. Let's try it again. Yeah. It's the same thing when you're walking with Christ. You're going to try to not swear and do the things and let the emotion want you to punch that person in the throat with a pen, right? But something happens and you go off on somebody, and then the devil's going to try to condemn you. Yeah. And say, see, look, you're not new. You're not in Christ. No, you failed. You lost. If redemption is lost that easy, we're all doomed, right? But it's not. That's what grace is for. So give yourself grace that, okay, well, I might have gone off on this person. Lord, help me to do better. And then the next time, maybe you only say one or two cuss words to somebody that does something. Maybe you only honk your horn once at somebody. Or maybe for me, somebody does something stupid on the road. I've gotten to the point, finally, I don't cuss them out when I'm driving or, why you? I hope you get... Lord Jesus, please bless them with some common sense.
Yeah.
Please bless them with some situational awareness. Please bless them with whatever it is that they need and remove this anger that's welling up inside of me. I just, you can ask and say, I don't like this feeling. Yeah. I know it's wrong because you've now tasted and felt the goodness of God and that peace that you say, I'm starting to feel a certain type of way. God, I don't know what feeling this is. I don't know what's going on. I'm a little confused, but I give it to you because I know I don't want it.
Yeah.
And then let him work, give yourself some grace.
Amen.
Love it. You guys, both of you, it's great to have you on here. We'll have to do it again soon, but I hope if anyone takes anything from this, it's to open yourself up and find something or a faith or a guiding light to kind of push you on the right journey. And again, your time is valuable to me, your friendship even more so. So again, thank you both for jumping on here.
I thank you for the privilege. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. So modest. Modest Marcus.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, we'll leave that alone.
Yeah.
Right on.
Well, thank you both. Be safe.
Love you.
Thank you.
Bye. Oh, hello. I'm just enjoying this nice fucking candle. Anyways, I'm John, the host of Spirit Talk, and I want to talk to you about nice fucking candles. We are lucky to have nice fucking candles as a sponsor of the podcast. And if you use code SPIRITTALK15, you get 15% off your first order, or use the affiliate link below to always get your candle needs through nice fucking candles. Nice fucking candles are 100% soy wax. They have a 65-hour burn time, maybe more if you nurse the flame a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not an expert on flames or candles, but I will say these things burn a long fucking time. You ask me about the wick. It's a double wick for even burning, which is amazing. And they come with 3 incredible flavors. I'm not sure if you're going to be eating these candles, but if you do like them, the scents are eucalyptus and ginseng, tobacco and fireside, and seaside and driftwood. Once again, nice fucking candles. They are the candle company for Spirit Talk. And if you love candles and need a good scent to clear out your office, your room, your podcast room, your weight room, whatever you're doing in a room that smells like crap, use this candle. It's amazing. Thank you. Check them out. Love nice fucking candles.